beef. Cattle were first domesticated around 10,000 years ago, and beef remains the most diverse meat in the world. Flavor and texture depend entirely on which part of the animal you're eating. The tenderloin does almost no work and stays extraordinarily soft. The chuck is tough when cooked fast, but silky after hours of braising. Brisket is one of the toughest cuts on the animal until 12 to 18 hours of smoke breaks it down. The deciding factor across all of it is marbling. More fat streaking through the muscle means richer, juicier meat. Angus dominates commercial beef worldwide. WAGYU takes that principle to its absolute extreme. WAGYU. WAGYU simply means Japanese cow. Isolated development combined with rigorous breeding produced cattle with a genetic predisposition for intramuscular fat unlike anything found anywhere else on Earth. The fat does not streak occasionally through the muscle. It weaves through every millimeter in a dense web that can make the meat look almost white. This fat has a melting point lower than human body temperature, so it begins dissolving on your tongue before you have finished biting. Japan's A5 grading requires perfect marks across marbling, color, firmness, and texture. Premium Wagyu is served in small portions because anything more becomes too rich to finish. Tuna. Tuna is one of the fastest fish in the ocean, and that constant swimming builds dense muscle packed with myoglobin, giving the flesh its deep red color. Bluefin is the most prized variety, particularly the fatty belly section called toro, with a buttery texture closer to fat than fish. A single bluefin sold for over $3 million at Japan's Toyosu market. Overfishing has pushed bluefin populations into serious decline globally. Yellowfin and albacore are the more commonly eaten varieties, leaner and milder, used in everything from sushi to canned tuna sold in supermarkets worldwide. Octopus. Raw octopus is extraordinarily tough due to high collagen content, which is why Greek fishermen traditionally beat it against rocks before cooking. Modern techniques include freezing and thawing, slow poaching under pressure, or blanching 3 times in boiling water. Done properly, the texture becomes tender with a gentle chew, and the flavor is clean and oceanic with a slight mineral quality. Octopus harvesting is increasingly controversial. Studies show octopuses use tools, solve problems, and display individual personalities. In 2022, the UK officially declared octopuses sentient beings with legal protections, despite the species remaining widely eaten across the world. Chicken. More chickens are processed globally every year than any other animal by a massive margin, making it the default protein of the modern world. Chickens were domesticated from red jungle fowl in Southeast Asia around 6,000 years ago, originally for fighting rather than food. After World War II, commercial breeding accelerated growth dramatically. Some modern chickens reach market size in just 35 days, compared to 16 weeks for traditional breeds. That speed came at a cost. Factory chicken breast is famously bland. Heritage breeds like France's breast chicken, often called the best chicken in the world by chefs, cost 3 to 5 times more and taste completely different. Iberico pork. Iberico is often called the Wagyu of pork. It comes from the black Iberian pig that has roamed the forests of the Iberian Peninsula for over 12,000 years. These pigs have a unique genetic ability to store intramuscular fat, producing ruby red meat that looks more like steak than conventional pork. The top grade bolota comes from pigs that eat up to 10 kilograms of acorns daily during the Montanera season. That acorn diet produces a nutty, slightly sweet flavor and a fat that melts at room temperature because it is rich in monounsaturated fats, similar to olive oil. A top-grade Iberico ham leg costs several $100s. Bison. Bison meat is often described as beefier than beef itself, with a richer, slightly sweeter flavor and minimal gaminess. The color is dark red, even darker than standard beef, with a dense grain. Bison is significantly leaner than commercial beef, which means it cooks faster and dries out easily if overcooked. Ground bison browns differently in a pan due to lower fat content and produces burgers that many people prefer to beef. Bison are the largest land animals in North America and were the primary food source for Plains indigenous peoples for thousands of years before European settlement nearly eliminated the entire species. Elk. A bull elk can weigh over 700 pounds, providing enormous amounts of meat from a single animal. Wild elk is leaner and more pronounced in flavor, earthy and slightly gamey, while farm-raised elk tends to be milder and more consistent. The meat is a deep, dark red due to higher myoglobin concentration. Elk has roughly a third of the fat of comparable beef, making it popular among high-protein, low-fat eaters. Cooking elk requires precision because the lack of fat means it turns tough if overcooked. The standard technique is a fast sear over high heat, followed by resting, keeping the center medium rare. Whale. Whale meat has a long history of survival food in Norway, Iceland, and Japan, particularly in post-war Japan when it was one of the few cheap protein sources available. Industrial whaling nearly drove multiple species to extinction before a global ban in 1986. The meat is dark red, resembling beef more than fish, packed with omega-3s and described as tasting like a mix of beef and liver. Norway and Iceland continue commercial whaling under exemptions. Japan resumed in 2019. Indigenous subsistence whaling remains separately permitted. Whales' demonstrated cognitive complexity keeps the practice among the most controversial food topics in the world. Kangaroo. Kangaroos have been a food source for Aboriginal Australians for at least 50,000 years, making it one of the oldest continuously consumed meats in human history. Wild kangaroos are harvested rather than farmed, roaming freely, eating native vegetation, and producing minimal methane compared to cattle. The flavor is distinctly gamey but pleasant, richer and more mineral than beef with an earthiness from its wild diet. Because kangaroos carry almost no intramuscular fat, the meat is extremely lean. Kangaroo tail is traditionally slow-cooked in stews, becoming rich and gelatinous after hours of braising, eaten by both Aboriginal communities and early settlers. Crocodile meat is eaten in Australia, Southeast Asia, and parts of Africa. The meat is white and firm with a flavor often described as a cross between chicken and fish. Australia farms saltwater and freshwater crocodiles commercially in the Northern Territory and Queensland, both for their skin and their meat. Crocodile meat is high in protein and low in fat. It became more widely available in Australian restaurants and specialty stores from the 1990s onward. Turkey. Turkey is native to North America and was domesticated by indigenous peoples thousands of years before European contact. Spanish explorers brought it to Europe in the 16th century. In the United States, turkey became associated with Thanksgiving after it was mentioned in accounts of early colonial celebrations. Americans consume roughly 46 million turkeys on Thanksgiving alone each year. Turkey meat is leaner than chicken and slightly higher in protein per gram. Lamb is meat from a sheep under 1 year old. Meat from older sheep is called mutton and has a stronger flavor that fell out of fashion in Western markets during the 20th century. Sheep were among the first animals domesticated by humans 10,000 years ago in the Middle East. Australia is the world's largest exporter of lamb, shipping primarily to the Middle East and Asia. Duck contains significantly more myoglobin than chicken, making the flesh darker and richer even in the breast. Ducks were domesticated in China around 4,000 years ago. Peking duck has a recorded history going back to the 14th century Yuan dynasty. Traditional preparation involves inflating air between the skin and fat, coating the bird in a maltose glaze, and roasting in a wood-fired oven until the skin becomes lacquered and crisp. Frog legs have been eaten in China for over 2,000 years and in France since at least the 12th century. France is most closely associated with the dish internationally, though China and Southeast Asia consume far more frog legs annually. In the United States, frog legs are a regional specialty in Louisiana and the American South, where bullfrogs are harvested from swamps and bayous. The meat is white, mild, and often compared to chicken, though the texture is closer to fish. Indonesia is currently the world's largest exporter of frog legs, shipping primarily to France and Belgium.